All right, good morning everybody and welcome back to True Crime Loser. How you doing? Did you have a good weekend? That's good. All right, so welcome back to the tail end of my Chris Watts coverage. I'm not just going to cover this case indefinitely. People that follow this channel know that I had completely transitioned off this case for like a month. I think I was probably the only true crime channel on YouTube to just be completely done with the Watts case. And because Watts is a draw on YouTube, right? Anything Chris Watts is going to get a bunch of views, and that can be addictive for a YouTube channel because it's like once you're used to Watts numbers, it's hard to go back to non-Watts numbers. And so I think you've seen a lot of YouTube channels just sort of keep going with it. And that's not what I want to do. I was totally happy being done with it. And then this interview came out of nowhere and pulled everyone back in. But I'm going to cover this interview, today and maybe one more video. And then, I don't know, maybe on the Dr. Phil episode today, maybe talk about it, but then be done, get back to Stephanie. For the people that even remember that, it was a million years ago. But my friend Shmita has been helping keep my spot on that one, so that's good. But anyway, let's Chris Watts ourselves another day. Okay, so the Dr. Phil episode, the second one, airs today. What did she say? And the Dr. Phil impression just gets more stupid and ridiculous as I go, and it's funny because there'll be people that, like I said, a bunch of people watch these videos that aren't fans of the show just because it's Chris Watts, and there's a bunch of people that's like, your Chris Watts impression is really bad, okay? It doesn't sound like him at all. And to that, I would say, she's just a little girl. But yeah, so the second episode airs today. I have no idea. I think it'll be better than the other one because Shanann's parents are on today. So he's going to have someone to interview, which I think he's way better at that than just like sitting around the creepy dinner table being like, let me press my tablet and talk to lawyers. This is fun, right? We're in a haunted house. Don't ask me why. That's where I do my lawyer discussions, in a giant haunted house. And they're probably not going to have to stretch the whole show for 2 sentences because they're doing the interview. And I'm glad that Shanann's parents are doing it. Hopefully they're making a nice chunk of change. God knows how much just money and time and just everything this whole thing has cost them. So if they can get on Dr. Phil, have a little closure, that might help, just to talk in front of everybody. Good for them. I got nothing bad to say about them. Do your thing. All right. So let's get into this is technically my part 2 of analyzing the new Jailhouse interview. And after having a week to kind of think about this interview, my opinion is that for little questions that we may have had this whole time, so things like, I wonder if he has other books other than the Bible, or I wonder if, he has internet access in prison, or I wonder, there's all these million questions that I had that really don't affect the case or if he's guilty. Nothing really that affects anything, but just stuff that I had wondered about. For stuff like that, the interview's great. There's just a lot of little, them asking Chris, did you know about that? Or this? There's a lot of people that thought this about this. Is that true? Or is that just, internet, people on the internet talking too much? And so for stuff like that, it's a pretty satisfying chunk of audio to come out if you had just been wondering about this case for the small stuff. But for the big stuff, like, why, Chris? Why, Steven? For the big question of why, it comes up painfully short, frustratingly short. Because here's my opinion. I think that he just slowly started to really hate Shanann because of what he thought she was doing to his family and him, separating his family, and, you know, the Facebook videos, and just slowly. And Chris can't communicate like a person, right? He doesn't have the ability to be like, Shanann, I really can't be separated from my family like this. You know, I love you and I love the girls, but there's got to be a way that we can get over this thing with my family, you know. And he can't say to his family, you know what, I love Shanann, this is my wife. So you guys got to cut her a break, all right? He doesn't have those communication skills, which I sort of got the feeling yesterday. I think that's why we're here. He can't communicate, and so it just, he got himself into, I don't know. So instead of just saying, I fell in love with this side piece from my work, I hated my wife, I'm not a man enough to even say what I was having issues with in the marriage, and I didn't want to pay child support, and she was, I think he thought that Shanann was going to ruin his life with child support and never seeing the kids. And my point is, I would have respected him a lot more if he would have just said, I just did not want to live this life. I met this girl at work. I wanted to live that life. I was not man enough to deal with the consequences of leaving this life, so I killed him. That would have been, I would have had so much more respect for him if he would have just said that, than just being like, well, geez, like, everything was just going towards that direction, and, you know, this soup had all this bad luck in it, and I don't know what happened. I just, you know, and it was just like, what, Chris? This wasn't bad luck soup. You know? And so that my first part of this analyzing the Chris Watts interview, if you saw it, was a lot of dealing with that kind of stuff of like the big question of why, Chris, why? And so this one, I'm not going to try to understand the lizard boy anymore in this one. I'm just going to kind of go through, so that first one was the first hour of the interview. This one is parts 2, 3, and 4. And I just kind of went through and jotted down little stuff that I had been wondering. So this one's going to be much less heavy and much less why Steven than the last one. But all right, so let's get into it. One is he knew everything about the case, which I had wondered about. You know, he's in a little room sitting next to a toilet. That's his new thing. He loves sitting next to his toilet in this shitbox room. And so I wondered, does he get updates on the case, or, you know, is he really just shut away in a little hole? And that was answered. Seems like either guards or people that transported him basically told him everything. Anything that Graham and Tammy brought up about the case, like this weird person that wrote you a letter and he'd be like, oh yeah, that person, I heard from the guard that person XYZ or whatever. And so that was, I thought that was pretty interesting. Again, just not even close to admitting the whole interview that it just wanted a new life and just didn't want to pay for his old life. I think that that's what it was, is he was just thinking, I'm going to have to pay child support for the next 18 years because I have these 3 little kids, and Shanann is just going to, you know, try to wring me out for everything I'm worth. It's more just a money thing. And he's like, I want to be with my new girl from work, I forgot I had a family because I was gone for a month. And um, yeah, so I thought it was interesting when he was talking about being in the jail in Colorado, just how everyone was telling him to kill himself and banging on the walls. And I'm glad that he had that experience for at least a little bit. And there's no guarantee he's going to be at this prison forever. So he could maybe get transferred to another hardcore prison. But one thing that he said is he said that an inmate had told him, everyone had been telling him that to kill himself and that he had thought about doing it. He thought about listening to him. And he said that one guy, while people were telling him ways to do it, one person was like, yeah, you could stick your head in the toilet and kill yourself. And that cracked me up. It's like, I kind of want to meet the guy that suggested that to Chris. Just like, Chris, yo, you could stick your head in the toilet. That is a viable option for your situation. You never want to get that to that point in your life where a viable option where people are suggesting, yo, after thinking about your situation, I think that you could put your head in the toilet until you're dead. That's pretty good. That's a good suggestion for you. I really never want to get to the point in my life where a viable suggestion is putting my head in the toilet. But that was a funny suggestion. I was cracking up. Just like, bro, you know what? You should put your head in the shitter. All right. And, okay, so regarding the story of, that he just made the girls ride out there alive, I had thought for sure that he had just done everybody in at the house. And so, it's heartbreaking that they rode out there. That ride, picturing that ride is just one of the saddest things, in my opinion, with this whole case. And so they get out there, and he's describing, he brought Shanann out to the little spot that he buried her, and then he's talking about what he did with the girls. And Tammy asks him, what was going through your head while you were doing this out there at the site? Because it's just, he kind of went into just like a robot mode, it seems like. And so I was really curious about that question too. Like, what goes through a mind as you're killing one daughter and then carrying her off? And Chris said nothing, just nothing. I wasn't thinking. If I was thinking, none of this would have happened. And they didn't press him on that, and I really wish they would have, because that sounds like a Chris Watts answer that just sounds like what he says when he doesn't want to give the answer, of just like, hey, what are you thinking? I wasn't thinking. If I was thinking, then none of this would have happened. Doesn't that kind of sound like just normal, borderline charming Chris Watts, where, if you just met that guy and you didn't know that he annihilated his family, that's sort of like just a nice dad answer. Like, what were you thinking about that? Oh, I wasn't thinking. And if I was, we wouldn't be here. And you'd be like, oh, Chris. But since knowing what he did, it's like, all right, dude, you got to put your head in the toilet. Do it. But they didn't press him on that. They just kind of let him get away with. And I know they don't hold any power. Hey, come on, Low T. Hey, everybody, check it out. Low T. All right, you sit here. Sit with me. What? She's meowing. And I think it would be beneficial to know, actually press him, like, what exactly was going through your mind? Was it a blank white screen? Was it, okay, I did this to Shanann, and now I have to do this to the girls because it's just, either to save them pain or to be able to say, my whole family left. I don't know. They all left. She left me and took the kids. I'm this victim. And he kind of mentioned this a few times, that he was just so mad at Shanann. I think he just let so many things, because he communicates about as good as a rock. He let all these things just pile up on him that he was mad about for so long, because he just has no backbone to say, hey, listen, as part of this family, this bothers me. We need to deal with this. And he just let years and years and years and years of everybody just kind of jerk him around and tell him what to do. But I wish they would have pressed him a little harder on what was going through your lizard head, bro. Just tell us, if it's blank, it was blank. If it was anger, then it was anger. But just being like, I wasn't thinking, and if I was, it wouldn't have happened. It just felt a little easy to get out of there with that answer. One thing that I didn't know is, Yo-Yo, YouTube subscriber Yo-Yo had a funny comment. I think that Yo-Yo is a fan of the show, but on the interview that I was listening to, he had a comment of Chris didn't want the girls to see their mom. So he was like, I didn't want them to see their mom, so I put her in trash bags. And so Yo-Yo had a comment of didn't want your girls to see their mom, so you put her in trash bags. Real solid dude. And yeah, I thought that was, he's like, at the same time, he's like, yeah, I'm trying to be compassionate, so I don't want my girls to see their dead mom. And it's like, oh, what'd you do? And it's like, I put her in a trash can. It's like, I don't even know what to say. You could put your head in the toilet, Chris. All right, so in talking to, also just in the same vein is, what were you thinking? I think it's also important to think about these cases is, we all were deciding or trying to figure out Chris's master plan this whole time. And I think it's important to keep it in an option for the next case. Is it's possible that these people don't have a plan. It seems crazy to try to pull off something that is at least somewhat premeditated. He said it's in the back of my mind, and it seemed like he had been planning it a little bit, for a week or a couple days. And then it seems crazy to try to do that without any plan at all. But it really does seem like Chris just planned to kill Shanann, and then after that just figured that he could just fly by the seat of his pants. And so I think Graham and Tammy, a lot of times in getting him to try to talk throughout this whole thing, when they were interrogating him and stuff, were trying to figure out his master plan. And really it was just oh, this guy is just sort of a child in a man's body with no plan other than just try to get this new life. And so I thought that was interesting. Nicole Atkins set up the TV interviews, which I never knew that. So she's the one that called Chris and were like, hey, the news is going to be on your front doorstep at 7 o'clock or whatever. And I thought that was a funny, badass move. It's I think she knew Chris did it all the time. So she was probably thinking yeah, have fun with the news, fuck boy. Have fun talking to the news, crits. All right, he doesn't have any internet access. That's something that a bunch of people had always talked about on this channel. It's I wonder if Chris Watts sees these YouTube videos that are made about him. I wonder if he's able to, check out the internet. So at least in this prison, he doesn't. When I was previously a while back doing Chris Watts videos, we had figured out, or at least talked about, that it was pretty unlikely that Shanann slept in that bra that she was found in. It was like a lacy, like had wires in it, and most of the women that follow the channel and my girlfriend agreed that they wouldn't sleep in that bra in a million years, especially coming home from the airport, like a big long travel day. And Chris Watts' way of saying, like, yeah, she slept in the bra was being like, yeah, she just got home late from the airport. She didn't even wash her face. She just, like, crawled into bed, which is possible. But washing your face takes a lot longer than just, like, taking a bra off and throwing it, on the floor and then crawling into bed. So I don't really understand the whole, like, she kept her bra on. And he's like, yeah, she didn't even wash her face that night. And then there was one comment that was like, if you're pregnant, maybe you would wear a bra like that to bed. And so I guess maybe it's possible since she was pregnant. But most of the women that have commented on it are like, I wouldn't wear that bra. I just wouldn't do it. I wouldn't wear it to bed. And so I think that part is still the part that he, for whatever reason, is just holding back on. I think that's the initial violence, is how it started, is like the girls are sort of a reaction to what already happened with Shanann. And so I think he's like, I don't know what to do. Yeah, I just was reacting at that point to this horrible situation. But the Shanann one that one's harder for him to, I think, explain away in his head, that he's not just a complete monster and should put his head in the toilet, is because if he just ambushed her and killed her, then, he's much more of a freak than the way he describes it, where he's like, yeah, like we had sex and then I wanted to talk to her and I was straddling her and she said this such a mean thing and I just went into a rage. That's easier, I think, for him to live with, is she sent me into a rage, than if I just, like a predator, like the predator that I am, just walked up to her, or just like walked up and got on her and started it. And so the whole like, I straddled her for 15 minutes after we had sex, and we had like a good conversation for some of it, and then it turned into this. That, to me, it just all sounds like bull still. Going from like non-violent Chris to violent Chris, it seems like he has a hard time explaining that. And they ask him, did you ever show rage when you were a kid? And there's a pause, and he goes, not really. And then he goes into this story about how he didn't have much friends in high school and blah, blah, blah. And I think he's lying about that. I think there had to have been little glimpses of this rage throughout, and just the pause. And just being around Chris, in all these interviews for so long, I think that's one of his lying styles too, is, so they'll be like, did you ever show that rage at any other point in your life? And it just, if it was a no, he would go, no, God, no, this is just but this, they were like, have you ever showed that rage on a cat or anything? And there's a pause, and he goes, not really. And then another tactic of his lie is, then right after he lies, and he goes into some story that really doesn't pertain to the lie. So he's like, yeah, they're like, have you ever, showed the rage? And he's like, not really. I never got in a fight in high school. And it's like, that's not really what we asked. And he goes, I didn't have, very many friends, or I didn't like to be in a group in high school. And just the way that he answered that question, it seems, I just can't see this being the one time. I don't think he killed before or even necessarily was mean to small animals or something, but there had to have been something, because he wasn't surprised by that question, or just like, no, 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 no. I mean, he was like, not really. All right, wrapping up. When he comes back from lunch, he just seems, I was talking on the other video, it's just how he's so just childlike in this whole thing. And they were like, how was lunch? And he was like, oh, it was good. It was macaroni, a bun, and some milk. So, I love that. And it's almost just like oh, that's nice, little guy. We'll get you some mac and cheese. And then they were like, it was funny. They were like, well, all right, so we're going to, on this session after lunch, we're going to not, keep you all day. We'll try to keep this short. And Chris is like, oh, it's fine. And it just cracked me up, too, because it's like, what do you mean take up Chris's all day? Whole day? What's his day? He just sits by a toilet. That's his life. He sits by a toilet and thinks about if he should put his head in it. And then I guess the last thing is I really wondered if he was getting books other than the Bible, because he was totally segregated in Colorado. And it's just a thing that I wondered is he really just the Bible and that's it? But that question was answered. And the first book that he was given by somebody, like a counselor, he said it was Murder at the Truman Center. So I Googled that last night, and what he meant to say was Murder at the Kennedy Center by Margaret Truman, which is a book about a murder. And it seems a little weird to give a murderer a book about murder. Right? And even Graham was like, I wonder if they were doing that to be like, to send him a message. Like, I don't know. I kind of want to order the book off Amazon. But it's about a book about how a political gala with a bunch of politicians, someone winds up murdered, and then it's like a mystery from there. But I thought that was a little strange, is he's just reading murder books. Right? All right. I think that's the show. I'll probably do one more video on the last chunk of this, and maybe of like a final thoughts, or maybe just a final thoughts after this one. But then I think I'm done. I had totally transitioned off this case already, and it had felt good, and I don't want to just keep going indefinitely on it. But it'll be interesting to see how this Dr. Phil episode goes today. Thanks to everybody that has liked and subscribed. And if you would like to support this channel, there is a Patreon link in the description. I would really appreciate it. Thank you to everyone that has signed up as a Patreon. And thanks to everybody. Have a good one. True Crime Loser out. It's diving.